Hey, so welcome everyone. This is Cindy Abbott, Executive Director of Sanchez Art Center. And on behalf of the SAC board and staff, I'd like to share how delighted we are to have you here with us this afternoon. Here in Pacifica, we just celebrated Earth Day yesterday. And I always like to take the time to extend our good wishes for not only your health, but for the harmony for you and our planet together. What would we be without her? From everyone at SAC and for all of the 2025 Left Coast Annual artists, we share our great appreciation for Karen Adams' time during the show. There were over 800 entries for this year's Left Coast Annual from artists in California, Oregon, Washington, Alaska, and Hawaii. And Karen took great time to review all of the works and make the difficult decisions to create a unique and highly cohesive show. Before hearing from Karen, I'd like to review how the day's program will flow. We'll be viewing the works of the 2025 Left Coast Annual in our Sanchez Art Center virtual galleries. We'll stroll through the gallery in alphabetical order. Each 2025 Left Coast Annual artist that's on the call with us, and there are about half of them with us today, were able to make the time. And they'll each be speaking for about 2 minutes regarding the work in the exhibition. Karen may also have some remarks. At the bottom of the screen, and when you run your pointer over the bottom, you should be able to see an icon, then you can click to allow for chat. We'd like to use that if you have any questions, and we ask the artist and juror to review the chat box and respond to any questions that are directed to you, if you have the ability to do so. I know sometimes it's hard to find that, but that's how we'll be taking questions during the call. We recognize your time is valuable, but as the afternoon permits, we'll may be able to take a few additional questions at the end of the program as well. We anticipate it to take about an hour and a half. If you'd like to revisit the virtual gallery later, it's Sanchez Art Center virtualgalleries.org. And there's also a link to the virtual site on our regular Sanchez Art Center website, that is sanchezartcenter.org. And we will be sharing a recording of the call on our Sanchez Art Center YouTube channel during the week. The 2025 Left Coast Annual runs through Sunday, May 11th. So if you haven't been yet in person, we welcome you to visit the Art Center in Pacifica. Our regular gallery hours are Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 1 to 5 p.m., though we also have some special events coming up. On Saturday and Sunday, May 3rd and 4th, we'll be participating in Silicon Valley Open Studios with 30 artists on site to visit and hear about their art practices. And that gives you some extra opportunity to view the Left Coast Annual as well, because we'll have extended gallery hours of 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. And on the last weekend of the exhibition, we'll be hosting our annual spring fundraiser, Art by Nature by Art, with natural floral creations inspired by works in the show. Advance tickets for the Friday night opening are available now on Eventbrite. And so that will be Friday, May 9th from 6:30 to 8:30, and we won't be open during the day on Friday, May 9th, while we're preparing for that wonderful event. On Saturday and Sunday, May 10th and 11th, the last day of the exhibition, just in time to celebrate spring and Mother's Day, we'll be taking a small cash donation at the door of $10 per person. And it's really exciting. On our virtual website, we also have some of the special unique arrangements that were done in prior years. So we hope you can check those out and come visit us. Any funds raised support our exhibition and community engagement programs. And now I'd like to introduce the juror for the 2025 Left Coast Annual, Karen Adams. Karen is Senior Curator of Art at the Oakland Museum of California. And welcome, Karen. Again, we so appreciate all of the time you've given to the 2025 Left Coast Annual Juried Exhibition.
Thank you, Cindy. Yeah, it was my pleasure. Just to give you a little background about who I am, I've been at the Oakland Museum for about 19 years. And Many of the projects I work on are years in the making. So it's really a pleasure to do things like jury exhibitions like this one, because it gives me an opportunity to see a lot of work and meet people that maybe I wouldn't otherwise. The last major exhibition I worked on was called Into the Brightness, and it was a huge group exhibition with artists from Naiad, Creative Growth, and Creativity Explored. There are three progressive studios in the Bay Area that work with artists with disabilities. And that was probably about a year ago. And I just opened a smaller project, which was a project with Chelsea Ryoko Wong. She was the Oakland Museum's first artist in residence, and she did research in our collections and created installation based on that research. And I'm currently working on a survey exhibition with Mildred Howard that will open in 2026. So timelines for museum work are very, very slow, and um, just being able to look through all the submissions for the Left Coast Annual was um, really difficult. It's so hard to see the work in that format. But all of you who are on the call, your work definitely stood out to me, and it was such a pleasure to see it in person at the opening. So thank you so much for participating, and I'm looking forward to meeting you virtually if I haven't already in person at the opening, and hearing a little bit more about your work.
Thank you so much, Karen. I'm going to now pull up, if I can find it, hopefully, our virtual gallery. Bear with me just for 1 minute. It was there a moment ago. Let's see what we share here. There we go. Okay, so as mentioned, we're going to scroll through this and adjust things on my screen. And here's all the artists in the show. Again, thank you, Karen. If artists aren't here, we'll give you a quick preview of what they look like, and then we'll take a longer time here for artists who are able to be with us this afternoon. And here we go, Peter, if you'd like to unmute.
Hello. This is called Iron Tree. It's a stone lithograph. I'm primarily a printmaker, and for most of my career, it's been etchings. And as of a few years ago, I re-embraced lithography. Even though my studio is not set up for it, I have an etching press. I can access presses other places. I've always been involved with cityscapes, urban landscapes, one sort or another, because I live in an urban environment. And I see in what others may regard as commonplace, I see compositions, I see an interplay of light and shadow, texture. This particular piece is not local. It's actually inside a museum in Ireland, the Titanic Museum. But what I saw inside there was this, to me, an obvious relationship to nature in a massive tree with its outreaching limbs holding up, in this case, a large building, but still, it's what a lot of trees appear to do. And it just, the title was almost immediate when I did it. And I like, especially when I work in a dark environment, I like nocturnes. It creates a certain romance and intrigue to a piece that in daylight might not have the same strength of importance to me. But this particular piece, again, I enjoy drawing very much, and that's why I re-embraced lithography from years ago, because it's just so much pure. interaction between my ability to draw and then conveying that on a piece of paper. This is all done traditionally with crayon, and it, for me, lithography still presents problems. Printmaking always presents problems. That's the beauty and joy and of printmaking, is that problems are always there, and it's not easy sometimes to realize your vision. But there were problems in this when it first started coming out on the stone and processing it, but I was able to fix things to my satisfaction. So again, I don't have a particular favorite of pieces. People ask you, what's your favorite piece? This evokes a certain connection. I love the motion, the strength, and the thrust of it into the air. And I think that is basically what attracts me to, what surrounds me is something else besides just a building or a structure of some sort. It's some sort of conveyance of a composition that I can reinterpret, sometimes literally, sometimes more abstractly. But this is what I do, and I make pictures, and hopefully the pictures convey something of what I'm thinking of when I see this. I think that's about all I can say about the piece. Thank you.
Well,
Hey,
I appreciated
Peter.
meeting you at the opening, and I think for everybody who I met, I think I let you know, like, I couldn't see your name when I was making selections, and I was strongly encouraged to choose only one piece from each artist. And many of you submitted multiple works, and it was very hard to have to select one. What I really appreciated, or what attracted me to your Peter, obviously the formal qualities of it are really beautiful, but what really struck me and um, had me select it was just a sense of a mysterious narrative that I couldn't I didn't know what it was about, but it was haunting, and that was enough to make me
Right?
want to see it in person.
Haunting is a great word for it. Yeah. Okay. Barry,
Hi, can you guys hear me?
yes.
Um, it's interesting coming after Peter because his work was inspired by trees, and I think of this piece somewhat of being almost like a digital rendition of a tree, a very abstract sort of shape of a tree. I've worked with topography. They say from the top it looks almost like a topographic map, like a flat lines. I've done lots of layering and think a lot about topography and geology when I layer materials. These are all reclaimed, reused materials. And this might have been one of the first pieces I've done where I started thinking it maybe a little bit more a narrative of a personal narrative instead of being so much based on terrain and topography, based more on personal growth, personal development, sort of layering, sort of a building up.
Today, I'm not sure if you know, but you're no longer sharing the slideshow with us. We can see
Okay,
just
sorry about that.
it's okay.
Here we
We
go.
can just see
Thank
your
you.
sheet.
We'll
Yeah.
try that again. There we go.
Right, there we go. So I started, I think probably somewhere around COVID when we all had too much time on our hands. I started layering wood and non-traditional materials instead of just laminating wood. There's some pieces of an old kitchen countertop. It's some kind of like plastic kind of vinyl type material. There's foam material in here, so there's some different colors and sort of a mixture of sort of hybrid materials. And then the bottom, this is also one of the first times I mixed a found object. That bottom there at the base, I decided I wanted to be taller off the floor, and I thought I needed some more negative space underneath it. And then I have a good friend of mine who's also an artist who was gutting part of a wall in a 1940s house. And so when they knew I'd used old wood, and before the construction dumpster left, they said, "Oh, Barry, you have to come over and check this out." And that was literally part of like probably old growth wood from the 1940s. It was like, when I was actually sawing it at my shop, the you could tell it was just a really hard wood. The shop saw's like, it's not like new wood. You go get new lumber that's very soft these days. And so I connected the two together, and I like this sort of, I felt it gave me more narrative possibilities as far as it literally is part of a, like the bays, the studs of a house, but there's also that sort of natural sort of element of growth coming out underneath it. So that's,
It's a great piece.
thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely saw it as something that was referencing the landscape, and it absolutely has those kind of narrative qualities in a really abstract way. And it was very hard to see, online, but I could tell that it had a material richness to it, kind of a funkiness of like, where all the component parts had their own lives and stories and past, and that you were consolidating them into this new kind of imaginary landscape. So I was very happy to see it in person.
Thank you. Thank you for including me in the show.
Janet. Janet, are you able to unmute?
Sorry. Hi. This is entitled Greenback Gotham, and it's a really pretty kind of an extreme shape, 60 inches by 15, and it's a combination. It uses a lot of collage, especially in the bottom of the painting. It's acrylic, and let's see. I lived in San Francisco for many years, and then and so I've also taken many pictures of the downtown and what's been going on down there, and um, uh, especially the Salesforce building and other buildings that have been going up in the recent years. And I started this, it was part of a whole series called Tents and Towers. And I started it during the pandemic when I had a lot of time to think and react and so on. I guess a lot of it, the whole series is really about inequality in this country, and especially in my part of it in the Bay Area. And the collage, most of the collage is taken from um, uh, photographs that I've taken myself on my iPhone, just traveling around the Bay Area. And let's see, I think a lot of it is, I guess the down in the bottom is an area where a lot of people are living, a lot of homeless people are living, or people who are kind of almost underground, and in this kind of heaped up area that's made up of broken rock and trash and signs and so on. There's a little area of mystery in the right above that area where there's a little yellow sign for people walking, and you can look, it looks like you can look into there, but you're not sure what's going in there. there's also an area right below that where it looks like there's a lot of life and electric lights and people kind of, I don't know, in a way, a little bit festive or so on. As I was doing this series, I started feeling like I didn't want to just show the homelessness part of it as just degraded, but that there was a certain amount of life and resilience and even creativity in people managing to survive in these circumstances when they're overshadowed by these large corporate buildings. Um, I I've done a lot of paintings that are all about cities in the past, not just this series. And I'm just really fascinated with it. I've always lived in an urban environment pretty much. Um, so let's see, what else did I want to say about it?
That was great. Thank you,
I think
Janet.
that's about it. Yes, thank you.
I was curious how you landed on the really extreme proportions of the canvas, which seemed like they're an important part of the work, really.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, you're right. I think it's because I wanted to show this verticality, this sense of a difference between all these high rises and the people below, um, and just that it's kind of in a way it's kind of a claustrophobic view also. Um, I wanted
Mhm.
to show people with very little right next to these giant buildings, which are full of people, I guess, who are doing well and owned by very rich people. So
Mhm.
Interesting way to show that. Thank you.
thank you. Thanks for including me in the show.
Oh, sure.
Will.
Hello, I'm Will. This piece is called Roses, Concrete, and Layered Rock. It's acrylic paint, and in 2020, my wife and I welcomed a baby boy, and my perspective just kind of shifted on seeing things for the first time through his eyes, hearing things through his ears, kind of tripping out on like, oh, it's the first time he's heard the Beatles before, and things of that nature. Um, but I think it kind of like changed my perspective on things I walk past every day and see a million times, and don't think twice about, compared to him seeing things for the first time and maybe marveling in them. So what you're seeing is three images that I captured, two from my iPhone and one is sourced. So it's board formed concrete along the top, which is from a planter box in Emeryville, California. And then some roses that were growing over into a park where we'd play with my son when he was really young. And then the square image is actually layered rock from Mars rover. So in 2022, that image was captured by the Curiosity rover. And yeah, again, just like that same thing, that's imagery from another planet that we all were able to see for the first time in 22. And just kind of like playing into that same juxtaposition of the first and first time seeing something versus seeing something over and over again, and
Mm.
kind of weighing the value of it, and understanding if it's things that are overlooked or over romanticized by us.
Yeah, I guess of not knowing that that image is from the rover, I had taken this painting as being about noticing the everyday and um and assumed that there was some story connecting all of them together. So it's really interesting that it's in a lot of ways about parenthood, right? And how that transforms your point of view.
I love that extra insight. Thank you so much, Will.
Thank you.
This is a large canvas too. It's spectacular if you haven't seen it in person. As we're knowing on screen, it's hard to take in the size and scale of some of the pieces. Jerry.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Cherie Bryant. So this is my piece, Horns. This is pastel on just a tone paper. And it's the first in a series that I was working on called The Melodies, of Fantastic Black Women. Melodies is a portmanteau of melanated ladies. And the idea behind it is that, I grew up loving sci-fi, loving fantasy, loving that sort of those genres, but not really seeing people that looked like me in those genres. I love comic books. You can kind of probably see like in some of my work, you'll probably see some aspects of that. Um, but I said, I didn't really see a lot of folks that looked like me. And so what I wanted to do with this series was to really kind of explore, the power and just the brilliance and beauty of like Black women and Blackness in fantasy. And oftentimes I've seen in some of the media I consumed growing up, if there was representation of Black folks, they were like the evil that was represented in the world. And I wanted to kind of break that trope. This was the first in the series. Is the series had 5 main entries. Also, I actually was part of the 50-50 show back in 2023, and I also chose to kind of continue on this theme. So my 50 pieces were continuing to explore, Black women and kind of adding just different like animal kind of characteristics and just like that kind of fantasy genre for it. Additionally, one thing I will say is, while, for this is the only piece in the series where it's a young girl, all the other pieces are older women. This one I said particularly was really, really meaning to represent myself in and the young girl that I was. And also I just wanted to also be able to present something for other young fans of fantasy, just to kind of have some representation for them so they can have something they can kind of see themselves in. The last thing I'll kind of mention for this is, when I've shown this piece to other folks, I do always love to hear how other people interpret it. I have a lot of people who their zodiac sign is the ram, and so they kind of really love seeing like the horns there. And one of the things I say for people, I make, I have reasons why I create my art, but I love to hear what other people can get out of my art, right? I mean, I think that's a lot of the purpose of kind of creating, but then also kind of putting your art out there. I think that's pretty much all I have to kind of speak on it. Thank you so much for your time, for everyone for listening.
Yeah, I enjoyed meeting you too at the opening and seeing the work in person. And I think I was attracted to this piece in particular of the because it was really a portrait of a child, like a fantastical child, and there's something so hopeful in it that I really, I don't know, mysterious, beautiful, out fantastical. So
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Alan.
Hi. Interwoven in this painting are sentiments around perfection and imperfection and how we relate to our bodies in the oftentimes extreme ways we perceive ourselves. And some of the words I jotted down in my sketchbook while I was making this painting are cuts, hairnets, sewing patterns, sags, like SAGS, tally marks as a counting system, like in jail, on a jail wall. Bows, BOWS, are barbed wire. Body maps, lumps, and paper doll cutouts. I created this work during my time at Vashon Artist Residency last spring, and my goal when I went there was to use all different materials and try things I haven't tried before. So I packed paints that I'd never used, such as like liquid acrylic ink, airbrush mediums, and Posca markers. And normally I work on paintings for months and often years, accruing like lots of layers and textures. And in this painting, I wanted to use the transparent nature of the materials to help the layers remain visible as I worked. And one last note about the title, Curious Anatomies. I am spellbound by the anatomical tables, which are housed at the Royal College of Physicians Museum in London. And the anatomical tables are, it's a set of 6 anatomical preparations of veins, nerves, and arteries that were dissected in the 1650s at Padua's famous anatomy theater. And I just can't stop looking at them. I highly recommend going online and looking at them. So yeah, that was also an inspiration for the title, and kind of, I don't know, it just fit. Thank you.
Oh, I love hearing that. I probably told you this in person too. Seeing this work in person is so different from seeing it online, because it really flattens it. And when you encounter the painting in person, you can see and feel all of its layers in a way that's really, really compelling. And I, you know, obviously you're working with abstraction, and there's nothing particularly literal about this, but there is still so much of the narrative there, and it does feel of the body and the mind in a way that I really appreciate.
Celeste.
Hi. Hi, my name is Celestian, and it's a pleasure being here. The piece that we're looking at is called Snowman, and I'll tell you a little bit later about why I named it Snowman. But first, I want to mention that this piece was a complete exploration and accident. I have to tell you that it's the result of just experimentation and intuition and just luck, in that I was using this canvas as a practice canvas for brush marks and mark making. I was working on a similar size canvas, and I hadn't really figured out how to make long marks with it, with the paintbrush. And so after about a year, I realized that something was going on my practice panel, and started working on this as its own piece. It doesn't look anything like the other painting. In addition, I was really intrigued by some of de Kooning's method of working, where he was mixing different ingredients into his oil paints, for example, water. He liked the way the paint was reacting with the water, how it would bubble up, and how just the paint would react and what it would be like to paint with it. And so I used some of that process here, which was like I had no idea what to expect. And part of what happened is that some of the paint took literally like 6-7 months to dry. Especially the red was part of that aspect. So I would say that the experimentation just kind of going along with what the painting was doing was the impetus behind the work getting to where it is now. So I called it Snowman at the end because, you know, a lot of times when you come up with a piece of work, you don't know what to call it and you just leave it as untitled. But I decided to call it Snowman because it reminded me of what it was like to make a snowman. Like sometimes you have an idea of what the snowman's going to look like, but when you get outside and you work with the snow, it's not fluffy or doesn't stick, or basically the snowman doesn't look like what you want the snowman to look like. But you make it anyway because it's fun and it's going somewhere. And just the whole process just like draws you in. And that's what happened with my painting. So that's why it's a snowman. That's all.
When I made the selection of this work, I of course didn't have the advantage of seeing it in person, but you can zoom into things fairly well in the system that we use for the jurying process, and I could see that it was it felt like a painting that you had spent a long time in discovery on. So it's really interesting to hear the story of how it came to be. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Take care. I'm going to leave because I have people here.
Yeah,
Good
thank
luck.
you for joining during Open
Thanks.
Studio.
Yeah, it was nice to talk to you.
Hello. First of all, thank you, Cindy and Karen, for including me in this exhibition. This piece is entitled Intimate Astrology, Oil on Canvas. So I have a prepared statement I was going to read from. So I use painting to explore the nature of our consciousness. I view my mind as another limb, an evolutionary adaptation that can run simulations based on past experiences in order to help prepare me for future trials and gain awareness of danger. Past, present, and future exist inside the mind as one, allowing us the unique capacity to create fictions to navigate and explain the world around us. To capture the most objective reflection of the mechanical functions of the mind possible, I collage disparate interior and exterior elements with the goal of creating an image that feels logical yet elusive. This results in a landscape of mind that mimics the inherent subjectivity of our perceptions, illustrating how the reality we construct in our mind may complete the reality we experience, but discriminates based on our morphing beliefs, memories, and ideas. I feel the landscape is the most appropriate mode of painting to discuss the mind because it can suggest vastness, fullness, and emptiness simultaneously. Much in the same way the Impressionists used light to capture a moment in time, I aim to use my paintings to capture a sincere reflection of the mind. Intimate astrology, and this painting in particular, is a meditation on the choice to either embrace or reject signals and synchronicities. While openness is certainly required to gain a higher level of consciousness, the sources and messages of signs can never be certain. Our interaction with the environment is where meaning comes from, and the mind often loves to play tricks on itself. The realization that we can choose what signs we may or may not respond to makes us more active participants in the path to enlightenment. So ultimately, the directions we choose reveal the paths that the universe opens for us. Thank you.
That's great.
Yeah, it was hard. It was hard to narrow down to one painting, and I mean, it seems to me that you're a world builder, and that even though I didn't have the advantage of hearing you hearing your statement when I made the selection, I knew that I was being invited in to your consciousness in a way with this work. It's so so intense, and there were so many things that actually I didn't see until I saw it in person too. So
Well, thank you, Karen.
nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you as well.
And I'm still finding details in this piece in the gallery as I go by it. Madeline, are you able to unmute?
I think I just did. Yes.
Okay, there you go.
Sorry. Hi. So this is a painting of my two housemates, Tess and Brady, and our dogs. Oh, and there's my friend's dog. Sorry about that. And it's on wallpaper. I paint on found wallpaper to kind of give myself a ground to react to, instead of just starting with a blank canvas. And I like the domesticity it evokes, and I also like that it's maybe a little bit retro, a little bit, you're not quite sure what the time period might be. And recently I've been doing paintings of sort of like people I'm intimate with. I'll snap photos of my friends and people like, in their bathrobes or just hanging around or doing something silly, just to like capture the moment that I'm experiencing with someone, and to kind of meditate on that. I I like doing paintings of people I'm a part of community with. And then in the past, I've done things like do portraits of folks I take pictures of at comic book conventions, and things like that. Where with that work, I'm a little more interested in sort of like how people present themselves and representation in our sort of mythologies. Because the people who are dressed up at conventions are obviously much more diverse than the people who are actually in the media they're dressing up as. And I love that. But in these, I'm sort of like scaling it down and trying to be more personal, as I sort of like reflect on my life and where I am in my life, and the people who surround me, and what I want out of life, and how I can learn from them and connect with them. And my practice of painting people, I don't know, people are really important to me. And so like painting them and contemplating them helps me feel more connected to them, in a certain way, even if I'm not actually spending time with them. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
I was really compelled by the intimacy of this painting, and the kind of time bending quality of it, with the scene of the couple and the dog, and the wallpaper, and the way that those elements are kind of working off of one another and in spite of each other, and I love the kind of clash of time and moment and scale, and
Congratulations, this won an exhibition award.
Thank you so much.
Darlene. Yeah, Matt, I was trying to get over to help Charlene unmute. We'll quickly scroll through the gallery, and then we'll see if we can get to review everything again.
There.
There we go. Perfect timing.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for having me come and be a part of the show. It's just, even though I haven't been able to come, I've been able to see it virtually, and now to have this is great. This piece is, what is it? Cones, mosses, and lichen. it kind of distills down where I am in my life in terms of the type of paintings I do. This is gouache and ink, and I find that I mostly do gouache and ink now. I used to be, well, I appreciated what Madeline said because my art has always been predicated on what's going on in my life. And from a child, I've loved nature and I've drawn nature. And after completing college, of course, I went into landscape painting and did large pieces that were dry pastels. But then I became allergic to them. And so I went back and got my master's in teaching and taught art in the public school. But then while I was at public school, I realized I love children's book art. So then I got very involved in that and I ended up illustrating a number of books. One set was on plants and nature. So it's all kind of gone into my idea of love of nature. So since then, I've only been able to, well, I've done pottery. I've just done almost everything, I think. But now I'm doing smaller pieces that are more about gathering. And this is a piece that is of cones I've gathered, lichen and moss, and of course, then seeing at the same time the leaves changing, it all seemed to make a collage that I loved. That's what I'm pursuing now, is just spending time doing nature drawings. And then I also send my work to a company called Spoonflower, who make fabrics out of my art. And I've really enjoyed doing that too. I don't know what else.
That's super cool. That's really interesting. Are you making things with the
Yes,
textiles or?
I just made a blouse. I got some Japanese pattern book and I made a blouse out of one of my fabrics.
Oh,
and
cool.
I've done a few other things out of my fabrics, but a lot of the people that work on Spoonflower do surface painting on computers, and that's not my thing. I like to draw and paint, and that's what I'm always going to do. I'm not making the images to be on fabric, but if they work on fabric, that's fine. I have to just do what I love.
Well, I appreciated the close looking that probably went into the making of this work. That's what attracted me to it.
Yeah, and I like, for some reason, I used to do sumo brush painting, but now I tend to really love doing very fine work with very small ink points. That's what I like.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Jessica.
I'm unmuted. Well, my name's Jessica Dunn. I'm a painter and a printmaker, and I live in the Outer Sunset District, which is very similar and close to Pacifica. And when I was listening to Peter Basek talk about how his print referred to a tree, I thought, well, this painting quite literally is of a bunch of trees, and in a different state. And one of the things I'm very aware of from where I live is the fog coming in, and I think of it as looking for its trees, even though that's, well, anyway, that's a poetic and rather sad interpretation. But a lot of my paintings have a very high rate of ground to horizon. The horizon is high. So I've been making a concerted effort to look up more and just see the buildings and structures in the bottom of the frame, because I am somewhat taken with how we all focus on different things when we're looking. Of course we do, but beyond the scientific interpretations of eyesight and peripheral vision and so on and so forth, when I'm driving along with my husband, he'll say, "Did you see that?" And I'll say, "That shadow?" And he'll say, "No, there was a car accident over there," and you just, you sort of pick and choose as you go through life as to what you want to look at and what you don't, or anyway. But anyway, that's how I'm approaching my paintings in general. And this is essentially a painting of nothing at all. It's just another evening in the sunset at that mysterious time that the Germans call the blue hour. And I think that's about it. Thank you.
Your work is so recognizable. I knew that this was your painting, even though I couldn't see your name when I was during the show, and I'm always struck by just the point of view and the way that you paint time and atmosphere, and just the kind of cinematic quality of your work has always really intrigued me. And this painting is I don't know, you could feel the atmosphere, and I love that about it.
Thank you. I did grow up in the Hollywood world, so I guess cinema makes sense for me. But anyway, thank you so much.
And this piece received one of the Jurors Awards of Merit, along with Tom Colcourt's work. Michelle.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Well, my work is a merging of painting, collage, and sculpture. I think it's hard to see in this photograph, but the piece comes off of the wall, and the backs are painted, and the colored light reflects back onto the wall. And in varying installations, the openings in the piece, like you might see at the very far left, can be filled with the light, or and almost become indistinguishable from a piece of paper. In the installation at the Sanchez Art Center, the installation is so that the light is in the back, very intense, and you see it sort of seeping out from the sides. I like the fact that the piece is variable and isn't really fixed, and it changes in different installations of light. Or sometimes the time of day or the place that it's installed. And I like the fact that I feel that the piece is floating on color or light, and that that is sort of the ground, paradoxically, something that's immaterial and changing. And I like the fact that the viewer can sort of try to figure this out, is like by walking around and sort of wondering where is the light or the color coming from. This piece was often when I travel, I go to seek out different qualities of light, and this piece was largely initially started in Montana, which is further and further west for me. So the name of the piece is called Outer West, both for its place, but also in a metaphoric sense of something that may be further away from what is maybe the norm. And when I go to a new place, I'll paint maybe 250 to 300 new pieces of paper that are just my reactions to color, not what I see, but what I feel. And then I have started to notate where and the date that I painted those pieces. And so now I have an extensive archive that's separated out in lots of boxes for varying colors of the spectrum. And I feel that the works are, in a sense, philosophical explorations. I think about like, well, what is the self? And a place. They're all everything. I feel like everything that I know or that I experience is this composite collage of different times. And so I feel sort of compelled to make these collages, to bring these actual literal pieces together into something that isn't quite fixed. So I feel like they're full of both incongruities as well as possibilities. And so for me, there's a sense of freedom in the making of this as well as in the looking. I think that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, looking at it is a complete exploration, and it really would depend, I guess, on where you're standing and what time of day, and
Yeah.
it's so much about like what's physically there and what's happening with the light and the atmosphere and the way that those things kind of vibrate off of each other and create an experience that's unique for that moment in time and the perspective of the person who's looking at it. It seems possibilities is such a good word. Thank you.
It is very intriguing, the various color patterns. Trying not to move around too much on my screen to not lose things. Was Vicky able to join us?
I don't think so.
All right.
Oh,
Rebecca.
I'm here, but it's okay not to be seen. I don't really look great today. That's okay. Can you hear me?
That's
Yes, we can hear
absolutely
you.
fine. Yes.
Okay. Yes. This is one of my cousins. I am Mexican American, and I have a huge family. And I guess what I want to say about this, we're not usually portrayed in this way. This is more of a classic portrait of my cousin. And he was just simply in the backyard at one of our many family gatherings eating watermelon. I want to mention something about watermelon and Mexicans. Unlike African Americans, it's a very positive connotation. Some say even the Mexican flag, the colors are made from watermelon colors. So I want to also say that there's a lot of celebrations around watermelon. In fact, people don't really realize, but Frida Kahlo's last painting before she died was called Viva la Vida, which is a portrait of watermelons. It's a big part of my family. My father, he was the tester in the family. He would go out and thump and also put a little plug in the watermelon. It was always a huge deal having the first watermelon of the season. And every party had watermelons. I mean, it was part of our culture. And so I just want to say basically that we're not seen this way. And that's really the idea of this portrait. I should explain my background. I had a graphic design firm in San Francisco for 30 years. I retired. I went to Morocco with the famous Milton Glaser. And I borrowed a camera and I found I had a natural compositional eye because of my background. So I'm a compulsive shooter. None of my photographs are planned. They're not posed. I just see things and I can compose a good photograph. And that's how this was taken. And so it's hard to see because black on black here, but it's just this is how I shoot. And I just run around to family events and I just photograph my family. And I just want us to be seen in a different setting, that especially right now. I mean, we're just family enjoying our lives, having backyard barbecues and parties and weddings, and I've been shooting all that. I just want to be seen in our culture in a positive sense. And that's really what this is about.
Well, I really appreciated the way that your nephew, the sitter, is really directly looking at the viewer. The way that, the composition mimics a classic portrait, and with all of the kind of dignity and all the things that are part of the history of portraiture. But also there's this informality. It looks as if he just got out of the pool and he's at a pool party and he's wearing his swim trunks and his shark towel, and I loved the contrast of those things, but particularly the strength of his gaze, and it's a beautiful photograph in person.
Thank you.
Lawrence.
I'm unmuted. Thank you. First, let me say thank you, Rebecca, for that message about the need today to be seen. We see your culture, and I appreciate that message being heard, and through your work, it's very important.
Thank you.
This work of mine is entitled New Frontiers, and it's from a series entitled There But for Fortune. It's a series of paintings that I've done from images in San Francisco. I do urban landscapes that I hope bring about a reflection of issues in the world: social justice, economic justice, climate change. And what I do is I go out and I call it sketching with the camera. And I was downtown San Francisco in the high-end store district. I have paintings of Neiman Marcus, Chanel, and all the other stores downtown. But I used to be a stage painter for 30 years. And what I've done with the windows is I look at them as a stage where I get to set the stage to tell the story that I want to tell of San Francisco and what's going on. So they're a little bit on the surreal side, and I like surrealism. In this particular case, Neiman Marcus store had a fashion campaign entitled New Frontiers. And without the reflections that I put into it, there's kind of the plains from Utah with these long, what appeared to be walls with these three mannequins that had a very authoritative look to them. And this was at the time back in the Biden administration when the war in Gaza was going full tilt boogie, and we were providing countless 2,000-pound bombs to the Israeli Air Force. So I took, working from the back, changed the plans and made part of the walls into what was the wall that was surrounding the people of Gaza, keeping them in this open air prison. And I'd been to a protest demanding a ceasefire. And from photographs from that protest, I also put reflections of the ceasefire banner and people behind it protesting. And then in my wanderings around taking photographs, I have this photograph of the woman pushing her stroller, and she's walking along, looking out into the street. And what she's seeing, as you can see from the reflection, is the protest approaching with the lead banner calling for a ceasefire. I also took the three authoritative looking mannequins, and the one in the middle is attired partly in camouflage uniform from the IDF forces. So I kind of use the window as a stage to present issues that I want people to reflect on, using the reflections in the painting to bring about the issues that I'm trying to portray. It's part of a series of paintings that I mentioned were entitled There But for Fortune. And the entire series to date is on my website, lawrencemontgomery.com, if anybody wants to look and see what any of the other images are. It's oil on canvas, and this is in terms of my artist statement. I have been and I intend on continue to creating paintings that raise issues that I want people to reflect on in terms of social issues, social justice, economic justice, etc. And this is one of the paintings from that series. So, thank you.
Thanks, Lawrence. I was intrigued by the surreal theatricality of the window in contrast to the protests that you can also see through the window, and just the everyday nature of walking downtown, and just the familiar scene, I think, in a lot of ways, actually, of the opulence that we're surrounded by, and how that contrasts with the political life of the Bay Area as well. And yeah, it's interesting to hear you talk about it and to know it's part of the series. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Francesca.
I'm unmuted now. Hi. Yeah, this piece is actually kind of old. It's a series that I did at a point when my kids were really struggling. They're now in their 30s, but my daughter was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, and part of that led to a lot of x-rays that were done because she was at age 13 was experiencing arthritis essentially. And I've always been a real fan of patterns and the pattern and decoration movement, and combination of my own love of color, which is very intuitive for me, and just something I really go with. Okay, that's the color, and it, however it works. So this is, a pattern of her hands, and as I said, it's part of a series. I was previously working in encaustic and using it primarily for shadow boxes that I would make and then cover in encaustic. They're on my website, so which is myname.com. And so I was kind of familiar with the material. I was making it myself. I've always just made encaustic. It's actually really easy to put together. You just have to be willing to deal with melted wax. And so I do a lot of dot patterning too, which again is, I guess I would say meditative. And this work and the series was really a way that I was able to, well, it was one of several ways, but kind of get through this really pretty dark and difficult period. And at the same time produce something that, do my art, I guess, is how it felt. One of the interesting things about encaustic is it's one of those crafty materials, and I also work now currently with needle felting, and I've been mixing needle felt with wax. Both are very crafty materials and can be they just don't really fall into the art world. They fall more into the craft world, and I sometimes call encaustic spin art because people go, "Ooh, look at the way it melts," and I like to use it in a way that provides tension, kind of between my obsessiveness and the pattern, and the fact that the wax is going to do what the wax is going to do sometimes, and how do I live with that? How do I live with what's unexpected? And yeah, that's it. And thank you for having me in the show.
Yeah, the rich materiality of your work is completely lost in the digital form. It's there's so much about it that you really have to see in person. I know that's really true of all of you, but that it's particularly true, I think, of your work. You really have to see it in person.
Yeah, it's very tactile. It's very, yeah. I often tell people, go ahead, you can touch it, just don't start scratching it, but yeah.
Right.
It has you really have this desire to like, ooh.
But I mean, I hear what you're saying about the sort of craft in a negative sense, things like needle felting or wax, but I do think that there's a lot of contemporary interest in the handmade and incorporating that into really contemporary.
I absolutely agree.
Conceptual works. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's fun to really push that envelope. So, yeah.
Yeah. James.
Hello. Yeah. Well, this is a wonderful opportunity to talk shop with fellow artists. So I'm really appreciating this, the quality of this activity on Zoom. So thank you for organizing it this way. This is a pencil and charcoal sketch, 22 by 30, and it reflects my curiosity and love of railroads and also of a place. And this is a place up north of California around Arbuckle, where there's a rail line that connects a whole bunch of agricultural industries to the Bay Area. And I've been doing a lot of painting around trains and tracks, particularly here in Santa Cruz. I've been a strong advocate of the building of a rail trail here, and we're fighting a big fight against some interests who want to tear up the tracks. And as an environmentalist and somebody who's really concerned about economic justice, these tracks are a vital link in our community. This is not in Santa Cruz. This is up in Colusa County, but it does get at the sense of place. These tracks running through orchards and rice fields and so forth, and I'm just really drawn to the feeling of that. And what I wanted to do was to, with pencil and charcoal, just to bring the sense of mood and almost, even some mystery and little even a sense of foreboding perhaps in this drawing. I've been doing a lot of drawing lately, going back to drawing after I drew a bunch of years ago, mostly as a kid, but I'm coming back to it with a kind of a kid-like joy, actually. And I'm noticing here in the space I'm in right now, this room, I'm just a lot of drawings around. So I'm really into working with pencil and charcoal. And again, wanting to connect to a sense of place and a connect to a sense of urgency in a certain way in some of my other work around the need to to build sustainable ways of getting around that are friendly to the environment. So it's a bit of what I do. And I had the opportunity last year to have an article about my work featured as the cover story for a magazine called Railroad Heritage, which was put together by the Center for Railroad Photography and Art back in Madison. And this was a great chance for me to assemble a bunch of work that really has to do with advocacy as well as just the beauty and the mystery, if you would, of rails and trains.
When I was during the show, I was trying to do my best to make sure that I was representing a real diversity of ways of working, and I knew I wanted to have a drawing, and I love that this was in graphite on paper, and that scene seems so California to me. Like I'm visiting my parents today, and I took the train, and I feel like I saw that, and I saw those clouds today. On the way here. I was curious if you, I mean, I'm sorry if you said this already, but do you work from photographs, or are you?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I have reference photos just as a kind of a starting place, and then a chance to just this the photo for this was taken coming back from up in Colusa County into the Bay Area, and I just so happened, I love the tracks, and just so happened to be a train there, and I was like, wow, this is so exciting. And
Yeah.
I just like the idea of working with the sharpness of black and white to capture.
Yeah.
I have to say, on the screen, it actually pops too. As we've said, not everything does, but this piece does.
Thank you. Yeah.
Howard.
In 2016, I started on a series of portraits that I titled the Silicon Valley Altarpiece. The portraits in the series include Mark Zuckerberg, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Edward Snowden. I like telling a story with a painting and telling it with some style and traditional aesthetic appeal. And living in the Bay Area, there's no more compelling story than that of the tech moguls. It struck me that the admiration and the reverence surrounding these Silicon Valley moguls is ripe for dark allegorical satire. The past decade has shown us the downside of high tech, especially social media, the way it's undermining the social fabric and feeding the extremism of our politics, not to mention Elon Musk's government wrecking ball. I thought a religious motif might be a good way to caricature some of the reverence surrounding the tech moguls. We are, after all, a society that worships money, and nobody makes more money than the tech moguls. For the Zuckerberg piece, I played off of Peter Paul Rubens' Venus at her morning toilette. I thought it would be a good way to capture the self-absorption that's part of what Facebook is about. So I have Zuckerberg transfixed by his own reflection in a mirror held by Putin. In the classical version, the mirror is held by cherubs, but after the Russian propaganda blitz that contributed to Trump's win in 2016, I thought Putin would be a better fit than cherubs. The inspiration for the religious motif comes from a trip to Prague, where I ran across a painter, Master Theodoricus, a painter from the mid-1300s. His paintings combine elements of the Eastern Orthodox icon tradition, that's the low relief that I used surrounding their portraits, with the more refined modeling that was just beginning to come out of Flanders in Italy. And the low relief is done in plaster. I created stencils of various logos and images connected to the theme of each subject. For Zuckerberg, I modified the Roman alphabet to give it a Cyrillic flavor, but if you look carefully, it actually spells things out. And then I finished the plaster with bronze acrylic paint to mimic the gold leaf that Theodoricus used. That's it.
Could you talk a little bit about what it's saying? All the symbols? I was really curious.
Yeah, you know, the Facebook is about looking at oneself and presenting oneself to the world and actually to yourself. So I have this reflexive interaction between Zuckerberg getting his own reflection in the mirror while simultaneously having his cell phone out, presumably on Facebook, while Putin is also having that having his cell phone up, taking Zuckerberg's photographs. So it's all of the interactions that I think sort of capture the way you know, tech man, you know, especially Facebook does its thing.
I didn't mean so much the gestures of the figures, but did I understand you correctly that all of the symbols actually on the raised surface,
Oh,
the
yeah.
gold part, that spells out something, that particular
Yeah,
message, or
I mean, I made it look sort of like a quasi Cyrillic alphabet, but it's actually, you know, Latin Roman alphabet. And so you can make out things like Facebook and Putin, and there are many symbols, although it looks kind of like Cyrillic. For the other portraits, I used various logos, but I didn't do that for this one.
okay, yeah, it's an incredible thing to behold in person, really layered. But I wasn't sure if I was missing more of a written message in the symbols in the frame, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Colleague Emily's with us.
Hi, I'm Emily Schwartzman, and this painting is called Woman in Kiseten. It's done in gouache. A lot of my work explores the emotional pull of overlooked spaces, those in-between places that feel both familiar and a little bit mysterious. I'm especially drawn to how light can transform the feeling of a place and how quiet everyday moments can stir something deeper in me. This piece was inspired by a traditional Japanese coffee house, or a kiseten. After stepping down into the space, I was really struck by the warm light, the hush of people reading and writing. No talking was allowed in the space, and the feeling of being transported almost to another time. In this painting, I wanted to hold on to that atmosphere, the soft glow, the solitude within a shared space, the small, almost sacred details like the empty glasses and the simple plate. Through loose brushwork and a warm lived-in palette, I tried to create a sense of stillness and reflection. Creating this piece became a way for me to explore that subtle shift in space and self, and as a reminder to myself to recognize the beauty that exists in quiet in-between moments. Thank you.
I really appreciated the narrative quality of this piece, not quite knowing what was happening in the scene, and the way that there's a looseness, but also a real intense specificity, like the I'm forgetting the name of the woven basket weave material in the brewer chair, or the way the reflection in the glass, recognizing the poster in the background, seeing things that were familiar, but also not understanding what the context was. So I liked not knowing that and hearing you talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Julie.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay? Good.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Julie Stock. I am an artist and teacher. I teach high school art, drawing, design, and sculpture. And at our school, San Mateo High School, the students are all required to lock up their phones into like a pouch all day from morning, like as soon as from bell to bell. And so, I've been teaching for several years, and I've seen the rise of cell phone technology amongst my teens and friends and everybody, and the how it kind of took over for a while and captured their attention and different and now, we instituted this policy where the students lock up their phones. And so it just changes the attention. And so I've just been exploring in sculpture, in ceramics, our human relationship to phone technology, because it's really become so apparent, and so much time we spend on our phones. And I just kind of love the kind of absurdity and surreal qualities of the California funk ceramic movement. And I just wanted to engage in that. So I did a bunch of sketches on different phones, just kind of going completely crazy with all different kinds of things that phones can do, and just twisting them up and changing them up, just exploring. So riffing off the phones. And so I was merging, I wanted to kind of show something about how much time we spend on our phones and the element of time. And it's so hard to do stuff with time and art. And so this was using the old pocket watch and the phone, merging them together in a surreal, absurd way. And inside I inscribed the word love. I think about, my parents are aging, they're in their 80s. And my mom's on the call right now. Hi, Mom. And, love is the most important thing. So time and love, that's all we have when it comes down to it. So watch how you spend your time and what captures your attention, and using those phones for, connecting in a positive way and not getting lost in the endless doom scroll. So that's what it's all about.
The Yonder pouch is familiar to me as a parent of young adults. I just love the scale of it, the way that you're using such a I don't know, primordial material as clay to do something about contemporary life. The way it bridges time and material, and with a sense of humor too. I really love it. It's nice to meet you.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you very much. It's fun to be involved with the show. Great to hear the stories too.
Yeah. Wow.
Hi. Can you hear me?
We can. Thanks for joining us from LA.
Yeah, thanks. Nice to be here. So this piece is called Yield 2, and it's an oil map of, or it's a portrait of all of the oil that we've extracted from Los Angeles. And it started with a question I had when I was coming across this government report about extraction, and I just had a simple question about like how much oil we've taken out of the ground in LA, and then from there California. And I was like having a lot of trouble finding any sort of concrete answer or where all the data was collected. So I sort of tried my best to collate all the government data that was out there through, hard physical reports that the government puts out from like 1876 to last year. And this is sort of like the result of just the LA part. There's going to be a Ventura part going all the way to Santa Barbara and then into Bakersfield eventually. But I was just trying to sort of make a map about from the oil's perspective, you know, like in every stage, whether it's the raw stage where it's coming out of the ground in an oil seep, like you have at Carpinteria State Beach or in Ojai, up through the production stage, like you can see at the Hathaway Oil Ranch or the Brea Olinda Oil Museum in LA. And these are places on the map, so you can actually like go and visit them. To even the sort of like cultural aspects of the things that oil eventually turns into through the economy. So like the Getty, you know, Center in LA, oil finance turns into an art collection. Another one is like the Doheny Memorial Museum, or sorry, Doheny Memorial Library at USC, where it's like this oil tycoon's fortune getting funneled up into a research library. And so I wanted to have it just be one place where you could see all these things in LA. And then the second part being the back, which is all of the data that I've collated. I kind of want it to live as a tool that people can kind of get on the same page about, because I just am so tired of people sort of going back and forth on these arguments of like of the impact of our extraction on the environment. And it's like, okay, well, finally we have a place where numbers can be talked about in an objective as possible way. So that was really sort of my idea behind this piece. And yeah, I hope to continue with regions as we go on. So thanks.
Oops, my headphones are playing.
Appreciated meeting you at the opening. Can you hear me?
No.
Okay. Hold on.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, my headphones just died midway.
Oh,
Sorry, which meant that you couldn't hear me talking. I just wanted to say I was so pleased to meet you at the opening. Thanks for coming all the way from LA. And this work is dark and intense, but also incredibly delightful. And you can like move your way into it in a way that is really compelling. And it's such an interesting body of work. And it was very pleased to meet you.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Eliza.
Oh,
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Yep. Okay. So this painting is called Fraying the Fabric of Civilization, and it's about war. It's a watercolor on paper, and I love using watercolor because for me, it's a really good balance of intention and control, and also like random chaos, and as color and water react. And I love what it does without any help. The commitment that I have to make with the watercolor is very helpful for me in organizing how I think about it, the narrative of my work, because I like to tell a lot of stories in my work. So this painting, I started just after the Ukraine war broke out, and I'm a pacifist. I think we're in an era that I believe we should be post-war. So at the time when I started this painting, the United States was involved in 11 acknowledged military conflicts, which is another way of saying undeclared war. We provide weapons, troops, weaponized drones, all of the above. And then I finished this piece in January of 2023, and by then we witnessed a great deal more bloodshed with Gaza, and there's no nice way to talk about war or the horrors of war. And I put in the crumbling path at the bottom with the veiled women there to remind us of authoritarian control and a path of fear and fascism, and where that leads. I've been really affected by the state of the world, and particularly how human beings treat each other. And so this painting reflects for me both my personal process of coping with the things that I feel are out of my control, and also my intention to disrupt our collective ability to compartmentalize what we cannot rationalize or comprehend, which allows us to ignore the very things that I think will define our era. And if you want to make meaningful change, I think you have to start looking honestly at the problem. And I think our species is walking a really dangerous path. And but I think we have a lot to come together to save. We have so much beauty in our culture, which is like in the fabrics, in the clothes we wear, and the foods we eat, the music, the dance, and we have, I believe, a universal hunger for love and safety. And I think those qualities there we go. And I think that they're lost in wars, sometimes forever. And sometimes the land from war stays scorched and burnt and scarred for many years and generations. The bomb is called the mother bomb, and it's heading straight for a sleeping infant. And from my opinion, that type of bomb leads to generational trauma. So I'm always reminded how extraordinary and amazing our species really is, and how beautifully diverse and loving and empathetic most people on the planet are. And I think that we've had the opportunity to adapt to some crazy things like a pandemic, where we exercised global concern and consciousness to some extent, even though there was a million flaws. We did something powerful all together, and I really believe that we could embrace the things that actually weave us together as a species rather than tear them apart with violence. And that's what this painting is all about. And I always include the, well, I don't always, but I like to include the night sky and the Milky Way in my paintings to remind us that we are the only known planet among a huge, huge night sky that we know is alive. And that's just achingly beautiful to me, and it's really worth saving to me. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm sorry I missed some of what you said, but I was really intrigued by the way that you incorporated all of these textiles in, and the graphics of textiles into this allegory, and it's a beautiful piece, even though it's also frightening and intense.
Thank you. The fabrics are all representative of the countries that we were at war with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Powerful piece.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eliza. That is the final piece in the show. Again, it will be open through Sunday, May 11th. And if you haven't seen it in person, if you do have the opportunity, we hope that you can join us at Sanchez Art Center in Pacifica. And really want to thank you all today. I Sorry for any technical glitches. Was trying to keep my hands away from controls so that we could keep the wonderful artwork in the exhibition up and available. And we have been on the call now for an hour and 45 minutes. I really appreciate everybody being with us today. And look forward to having you again to visit. And if you haven't already, I hope that you can come in. So thank you very much, everyone, for all of your time today. Again, Karen, thank you so much. And to all the artists in the show, even those who couldn't be with us today, keep creating. It's so important what you're doing, sharing your thoughts and your inspiration with us.
Thank you, everybody. I really enjoyed this process and getting to meet all of you and become familiar with your work.
Okay, so thank you so much, and we'll see the artists soon. Again, keep at it.
Bye.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.